All right. Good morning, dudes and dudettes. One take, everybody knows the rule. Actually, maybe not good morning. Maybe good night, late night. Good luck on all your exams. All right. So, we're going to be talking about state capacity. That is essentially authority and power combined. So, what are going to be focusing on the ability to govern? So, we need to talk about authority and power. With that, like before, there's kind of these five main concepts, and these five main concepts are essentially always going to be in the conversation of authority and power. So, I'm going to start with the, in my opinion, easiest to talk about, which is globalization. Globalization is one of the easiest to talk about because it's very straightforward. Your authority and power directly connects to your supranational organizations, these external forces. And these external forces can be very, very, very powerful. Necessarily doesn't have to be a supranational organization. It can be a multinational corporation. Remember with Nigeria and its oil issues, where countries like Russia and America and the United Kingdom came in to dig their oil for their rentier states, that also directly impacts your authority and power. Naturally, if a giant organization like Shell or ExxonMobil or PetroChina comes into your country, you kind of got to listen to them. And it pressures you to do the right thing for your authority and power. You might not even have the power to govern your country. So naturally, globalization is a big one to have a conversation about because that didn't happen 100 years ago. That happens now, and it happens to a lot of different countries. Many, many countries are going to be impacted, especially what I believe is with AI is going to directly impact this, because if you have AI, you're going to be able to control essentially the access to information, and that's very powerful. Next, we're going to talk about social cleavages. Social cleavages obviously have an issue outside of your authority and power. Obviously, for Nigeria, you have the authority issue to where people just don't believe in you and they don't believe you have the capacity to govern and you have the capacity to make these decisions. You don't have the authority because you're not my religion. So social cleavages, I believe, is pretty straightforward. In my opinion, you'd only talk about Nigeria in this scenario. Theoretically, you could talk about the UK, you could talk about Russia and Iran, but naturally, for this specific one with the authority and power argument, the state to capacity, then Nigeria is really all you got. Next is going to be regime type. Naturally, when it comes to the ability to govern the power situation, authoritarian regimes are going to have a lot more power than democratic regimes because they don't have to be voted into power. They can just kind of create their own power and authority. And naturally, it's a catch-22, right? So if you have too much power, people don't trust you. If they don't trust you, they try to take you out. But if you have not enough power, then anyone's going to take over your position at any time. So naturally, we're going to be talking about China, Nigeria, the United Kingdom when it comes to this concept of power and authority inside of your regime type. Then we have economic development. Economic development is going to be an area of rather importance because this is a huge argument for everything, is because when you have economic development, people's perception of authority, legitimacy, increases significantly. So that's why legitimacy is also here too, and there's output input. So economic development and legitimacy kind of fuse together into one big concept, but they are separate specifically because of the concept of output versus input. So I'm going to focus on the economic developments first. China and Mexico are positives to the capacity to govern because the authority and power of the country is better now that they have higher and larger economies, the ability to grow an economy, the ability to have multinational corporations are all things that give authority to the government because that's the government's decision at the end of the day. It was the government's decisions to sign NAFTA for Mexico, to move businesses up to northern parts of Mexico, the trading with America. That was Mexico's government's finalized decision. China with the SEZs inside of the eastern cities, the tech hubs of the world of Shenzhen and Shanghai, like that is a good thing. That makes people in the country believe that they have the authority and power to govern the country because their economy is doing really, really well. Nigeria might be on the opposite side because of the rentier state argument, to where they kind of gave up their authority and gave up their power for economic development. finally, you have legitimacy. Legitimacy has output versus input. So in China, like I said, they have this output of legitimacy. They're able to produce a ton. Their economy got bigger. I guess you want to say, international presence of China has grown significantly. 20 years ago, when I was a little kid, I never even heard of China. When my mom traveled to China when I was like, I think 8, every single person I knew was like, China? Like, what? Why? Now you got people on Instagram having their China, what is it called? Oh my God, what are they calling it? Like China moment, where they're like drinking hot tea. I don't know how that's China, like specifically Chinese. Lots of cultures drink warm liquids, or doing the Tai Chi or the jumping, whatever. Social media is weird. The output is a cultural presence, economic presence, and a political presence is this output, and that really, really increases the legitimacy, which then increases your authority, which increases your power, which increases your sovereignty, your everything, right? So that is a very important thing. On the opposite side, you do have the input perspective. So where the United Kingdom has such high levels of, I guess you want to say, political openness, that it allows this high level of legitimacy inside the government. So they have referenda. Whenever there's big conversations, they have referenda. Whenever there's a vote, they always let the people vote. There's never any issues inside of their political atmosphere when it comes to that. And that gives legitimacy, which gives people the idea of authority and power towards their government. So overall, these 5 areas, I would say, are the biggest 5 areas, and generally speaking, I would say are kind of the main talking points, especially for FRQs, right? So if you have any questions about authority or power, you can think back to these 5 areas and talk about it. In my head, I think globalization, legitimacy are probably 2 of the easier ones to talk about, because they have such easy things to talk about, specifically China, UK for legitimacy, and globalization with the EU and multinational corporations. Very easy to talk about. You should have a lot of background knowledge naturally. So overall, really easy to talk about the FRQs. Generally speaking, that's all I got to say. Best of luck to all of you guys and your exams. Have a great rest of your day. Sleep well, eat well, have fun.